Let's go ahead and kick this off. Hey, I'm Cecilia. I'm on the prompt team and I'm going to be the fly on the wall and I'm going to turn it over to Nolan.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. My name's Nolan. I'm a senior team lead on our enterprise side of customer success. Really excited to chat with you all today about the EMR transition, best practices, and really how to make that transition as smooth as possible. And I have some great team members alongside me, and then a couple of customers as well who've been on the front lines with the transition as well. To start off, let's throw it to Justin just for a quick intro, and then we'll go to Stevie and Josh.
Hello, I'm Justin Ferguson. I'm on the prompt team as well. I work as a director of billing success and help onboard all things billing and EDI related. And I'll pass it over to Josh.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me here. I'm Josh Grover. I work with a consulting firm, Optimized Transition Partners Incorporated. Basically, we help teams from their go live date moving forward with that transition. We've also transitioned ourselves. I'm a partner in some clinics in New Hampshire, and we transferred to Prompt. So about 4 years ago.
Awesome, thanks. And then Stevie, go ahead.
Stevie Fell. I'm happy to be here to give my sort of little bit of expertise on our transition. I am at physical therapy and sports medicine centers in Connecticut, and I am the customer experience coordinator. So I'm a lot of words to say that I help a lot with operations-based things.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. I think anytime a transition like this is being considered, there's always a lot of fear around it, right? There's the need for all of your clinicians to learn a new way of documentation or a different format, I should say. On the admin side, new workflows, where are different items located? How do we schedule effectively? And then I think billing is usually the spot of biggest concern is alongside data, right? So there's a lot of moving parts that I think can sometimes shy people away from doing a transition. But I think when you have the right people involved, you can really make it pretty effective and a really good time to also reevaluate some workflows that your team has and see if you can even optimize those as you switch over. So, Steve, I'd love to hear from you to start here. You obviously work with a very large team. As you guys were considering the switch, what were some of the fears that you guys had going through that, and what kind of ultimately led you guys to say, what this is worth us going through with?
Yeah, so we do, at the time of considering transition, we were at just over 30 clinics. So we had something like 150 clinicians, 60 or 65 front desk staff, and a lot of other administrative staff as well. That's a huge undertaking, moving that many people, training that many people, getting everyone to buy in across the board to a big change like an EMR system. It wasn't easy, certainly, making the decision and kind of just getting everyone's thoughts and opinions on everything. But we were ready to move from our previous EMR. It made sense. And with all of the initial conversations and support from Prompt right out the gate, it was really a no-brainer. So a lot of our fears of this big giant change were handled in our first couple of conversations with Prompt. And then we went back and had meetings ourselves and said, really, I think Prompt is the way to go. And here we are.
And you bring up a very key word to me with buy-in, right? I think anytime there's a switch, it's really hard to get every single team member, whether it's clinical admin billing, on the same page. How did you guys go about broaching that topic with your team and really getting that buy-in that ultimately led you guys to a really strong start and continued success on Prompt?
Yeah, because our organization is on the larger side, we had key people in places. We designated experts in a lot of places and connected with those teams individually. Our head clinician, really, she took meeting with clinicians ahead of time. And certainly buy-in didn't come from every single person, but the way that our model works, it was a majority decision. And we got to those people who are still had that trepidation of moving, and we had conversations. We talked to operations people, the clinicians talked to each other. They had small work groups that they were meeting together prior to the transition to help with all those fears that come with a big change like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge piece of it, right? If it's not it doesn't feel like a group decision, I think it's opening the door for a lot more pushback and a lot less excitement about what ultimately should be a really big positive for the company as a whole. For you, Josh, transitioning a couple of your own clinics to Prompt and then also working with a lot of teams that have made this transition, what have you seen taking teams from that go live date forward? What's led to some teams being in a really good spot to start? And what are some things that maybe you've noticed that teams that maybe struggle off the bat maybe didn't consider during their onboarding phase?
Yeah, I think you have such a robust onboarding phase and a lot of check-ins and a lot of things that you do to help these teams. I think some of the biggest things are certainly utilizing the ones we see transition best anyway when they get to us are the teams that utilize the full capacity of that onboarding. So meaning like enrolling key players and everyone within their team into the Prompt University videos you have, making sure that they see those, having some meetings prior to your official check-ins with their success managers to ask questions amongst themselves. And it makes those official check-ins with you guys a much more efficient and effective for them to ask the appropriate things they're really struggling on, so that it's not just all over the place within those. You're actually getting like real answers to what they need and applying those. A few other things that we see are when it comes to like data transfer, one of the biggest things that I can touch on real quick so we can move on here is patient responsibility with it, and any clinics typically is like 1/3 of your revenue every month. Bringing that AR over, that is something you in a balance forward so that you don't have to work out of two systems, sending statements out of two systems. Maybe asking the questions on how you best do that in onboarding, creating a balance forward inventory item, those types, just some of those things that you guys can touch on to get that over there so they're not missing out on that revenue, and pulling the right reports to make sure they have an accurate accounting of what that is when they transfer. That's one big thing that I see a lot of teams that do that well. They succeed in not having any revenue leakage or slowdown in revenue when they switch.
Yeah, I always think of go live as almost like three phases, right? Admins always have the first bout of work, right? They're updating
Yep.
patient profiles, that kind of stuff. Clinicians on go live week are doing all those transition notes. And then really billing is the third piece. But there's always a lot of fear and there's a lot of work, right? Because you do have to be out of two systems a little bit. And I feel like there's always some confusion on best practices there. Justin, anything that you would want to add there in terms of how teams are able to effectively manage that, especially over those first couple of months?
Yeah, I think that's like a part of the pre-onboarding conversation too, is just understanding what their current workflows are, how much kind of AR they have left in their prior systems, if they have a plan to wind that down. And then also working with like EDI and just making sure if it's a clinic and it makes sense to use like a rebatcher or a parser. So you're not manually posting claims back and forth between the two systems. And I feel like there's a moment, kind of like Josh talked about, where you're able to decide what you want to bring forward and bring into prompt, and then what you might want to work out of your legacy system. And for teams different sizes, it might make different, better decisions depending on that. But also, like Josh said, just asking those questions. How do we want to do this? Is there options? There's not one perfect way. There's multiple ways we can help facilitate it. And there's also services that help with it too. So just having those conversations pre-onboarding, like as you start onboarding, pre-go live, having a plan ironed out, and then making sure you're able to address those.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll take a quick pause for a second. We're going to throw a quick poll question up that we'd love you guys to give an answer on here. So, where are you in the EMR evaluation journey? We'll give you guys a minute or two to answer that one. Perfect. Good to go. All right, perfect. So talking a little bit more about the transition, there are certainly quite a few touch points during onboarding. And as Josh mentioned, the way that we structure it here at Prompt is there are so many things to learn in a new system, right? And really the way that we've gone about building out our onboarding is that we give teams Prompt University, which at Prompt we have an entire subsection of our customer success department that their entire role is our video content, support knowledge base, and all of that educational content. So how we do it is basically we'll have teams lead on Prompt University, watch all of the videos, get a really good understanding of the platform. And then with the meetings that you would have with myself or Justin, kind of diving into, okay, here's how we interpreted how this workflow should function. What's the best way for PTSMC to run that? And for you guys, Stevie, I think you guys did a phenomenal job evaluating, okay, we do it this way today. Is there a better way now that we're switching over? There's maybe a new feature that we had to have a workaround for prior. How did the meetings that we had to go over those workflows help you guys iron out your own processes to have a really clean system on day one in Prompt?
Yeah, I think it's really unique to Prompt is that Nolan has been with our team since the start, and having that one point of contact with the ability to contact others. We've worked with Justin quite a lot. We worked with others in the Prompt world, certainly, but having Nolan and having everything laid out from, I can't say enough good things about Prompt University. We did what Prompt recommended in the beginning. We had our core users, we had our super users in kind of each location had a super user, and we took questions from our team and brought those back to Nolan in our meetings. And we did take Prompt as a big opportunity to change some of our workflows that weren't efficient in our previous system or just in overall functionality. And we identified some things that Prompt just made easier, and we made those changes as we came across. Certainly not everything we changed, but going through things and saying, hey, we don't love this particular thing, doesn't work for us, but then having that contact with Nolan and the other people at Prompt to do workarounds or a different kind of workflow was really a key in our Prompt success.
Yeah, and as Stevie mentioned there, one thing that is pretty unique to Prompt is that there's not a separate team member that onboards and then a separate team member that picks up post go live. It's always the same person throughout all of that process, which, one of the things I go back to all the time is just the trust you build with the team is really the core building block of how successful everyone's going to be. If I wasn't jumping in until go live, it'd take me a lot of time to figure out, okay, what are all of PTSMC's different workflows? And there's a lot more of a learning curve. The fact that I was involved with all of those from the very start is just makes a huge difference. And throughout all of onboarding, like there is a lot of stuff that has to get done. It really helps us to build a lot of trust. And hey, I know that they're going to hold up their end of the bargain and they can expect the same thing of me. So when it comes down to reviewing the site, seeing if prompts being used most effectively, I think it's a lot more of a comfortable conversation if I say, hey, currently you guys do it this way. What would you think about changing it? I think the fact that we've already had a really long relationship makes that conversation a lot easier versus if I'm a brand new person and I'm like, hey, you guys should overhaul how you do everything. I don't know that they're going to be super receptive to that. I think that's a really big advantage of how we operate things here at Prompt. And then going into how our billing and clinical team is set up here. On Prompt, everyone on the customer success team is either a PT, OT, SLP, or chiropractor. And then on the billing side, everyone has billed for one of those disciplines in the past. So you get a lot of really good experience. Stevie, I'm curious how you guys have noticed a difference, if at all, with just your interactions with support on both the admin, clinical, and billing side because of that.
Yeah, I think it feels really unique to me that the customer success people that are doing the onboarding are PTs and do have that knowledge because of course we had questions that were strictly clinical based and billing modifiers and this and that and everything. So having people involved that aren't just, I think maybe like business people, as you think of someone who typically would do an onboarding to a new platform or some kind of training. I do think that Prompt is really unique in that way, in that Nolan is a PT and has treated patients and understands from a clinician point of view, and also has that other side of things where he knows what our front desk people are going through just because of how knowledgeable he is about the EMR system. I think having a touch person in all of those places that have done this and are doing this was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, from your end, how have you noticed the clinical and billing background has influenced some of your teams and just the ability to help streamline some of their workflows and analyze if they're doing them most effectively?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that we hear a lot from teams, and even just our team in general, is that whenever questions or frustrations are raised, it's not like a canned response they're getting back. It's not scripted. It's based and rooted in real experience. So it gives you guys the ability to, prompt the ability to adapt to whatever's going on or whatever unique challenges is posed to be able to tap into that experience. And maybe you've never experienced exactly what it is, but something close to it and can work through that with the team as opposed to just some, like I said, scripted thing. So they appreciate that quite a bit. On the clinical side, one of the biggest things that I've seen a lot is, and we talk about this all the time, is burnout, right? And documentation. So one of the things I've seen quite a bit is clinicians, so the success managers that are clinicians and things, helping with some of the daily notes and templates, basically so there's no redundancies there or over documentation that's not needed for further compliance, right? If it's going to help with compliance, of course, put it there. If not, what are you putting it there for if you don't need it? And then let's create a template for that. One of the most impactful things they did for our team specifically were there's two workflows generally within Prompt on how you document. And our team wanted to go with workflow 2, but there were some questions on how best to put that into practice, and working with the onboarding success manager that we had, she was really able to work our team through that. So we hit the ground running right away on go live day.
Awesome. Stevie, for you, what have you guys noticed now that you're post go live for almost a year now, coming up pretty quick? What are some of the biggest differences you've seen just in the flow of daily operations and things getting a little bit easier since transitioning?
Yeah, I think it's Prompts just offers so much to everyone. All the teams that from admin front desk to clinician operations, and Josh was talking text templates and templating out documentation. We have clinicians that are finishing notes now in a couple of days as opposed to a longer time frame that they would have previously done in a system that wasn't set up that way. But I think that I will never forget 4 or 5 months after go live, front desk person came to me and said, "Hey, you got anything that I can help out with or any projects? Because I think we might be overstaffed." So we did, and just really all the things that all the features that Prompt offers, waitlist refills, not having to call patients to get them in and on the schedule. It just those things that used to take so much time, auditing lost patient logs, we used to have to print and manually do it. Things are just so much more efficient in Prompt now that our day-to-day workflow is miles more efficient than it was in our previous EMR.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. And I think a lot of tasks that fall onto the admin team are ones that we really have tried to offload from them with online scheduling and just the ease of check-in and kiosks for teams that leverage that. Because especially where you guys are located, like so much effort has to be put into authorizations. And it really the goal is to free up the admin team to do things that really require their expertise versus if all of their time is spent manually scheduling or some of those tasks that don't need them, it ends up having a negative effect on auth management and some of those other verification pieces. And going to you, Josh, I think a big piece of what I hear from a lot of teams when they switch to prompt is just the ability to report on a lot more data points than they could previously. With your company and kind of you guys assessing, hey, what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? How has prompts reporting helped you guys drive outcomes for the teams that you work with?
Yeah, Nolan, it's huge. The way that you can lead in leadership oversight to be able to make objective decisions as opposed to subjective or emotional decisions or just by what you feel is going on is amazing. The insights and just the transparency through the reports that you can see on how well your practice is doing in all aspects for all KPIs is a second to none, I think personally. I'm sure Stevie agrees on that.
Absolutely.
So we see that regularly when we go in to help these teams after their go live date on just billing things and things that we do. We have a built out report template that we do that's, hey, this is the prompt report you want to pull at this time, at the right monthly, weekly, quarterly, yearly. And these are the things you're going to be looking to look at. And they're all native right there live. They update live. So it's pretty amazing. You can identify performance trends, you can identify any bottlenecks, billing issues, and it's all real time. So you can you're very nimble, right? So the system's nimble and then it makes your team very nimble. And you don't feel like you're slowed down by any lack of efficiency from your EMR. And it's hard to honestly, until you get into prompt, it's hard to know how much your old EMR was slowing you down. You always probably have an inclination, but you don't really know until you switch over. And then you're like, holy cow, I can't believe we're ever doing it a different way. Just to touch on Stevie alone, the time my admin team saves by not having to, like she said, print out patient notes and then scan them or fax them with the integration of SR Fax, you just go in and select and send. Like it's night and day just with something as simple as that. And then all those seconds add to minutes, add to hours that you're getting back to do something proactive and you're not doing any redundant, just tedious tasks.
Yeah. Yeah, and back to you, Stevie. Are there any like KPIs or data points that now that you guys are in prompt, you just have more insight into and that you guys have been like, oh, we could be doing this better, and you maybe just weren't able to track that previously?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because we've this year at PTSMC kind of have established smaller work groups across the organization to look at exactly those things that now Prompt does offer us the ability to have more insight in and do things. I know that there's groups working on how can we train our clinicians on billing more efficiently. Prediction health has been huge for our team. That integration of, hey, it looks like you might be underbilled for this. It's a no-brainer to include something like that. And being able to report on essentially everything that you could possibly be looking for. People will come to me sometimes and they're like, hey, I'm looking to get this measure. Is that something that we can do? And the answer 99% of the times in Prompt is yes, absolutely. With the addition of BI, I think BI is also huge, and everything that can be set up in BI to pull from Prompt. So anything that Prompt doesn't natively offer, we can build in BI and create that report to pull the exactly what we're looking for. I think it's creating now this pocket of information that we can look closer into and say, how can we now use the tools that we're offered to make things even better?
Yeah. Justin, on the billing side, are there any specific like reports or KPIs that you analyze for new teams that again maybe they weren't able to get the full picture of that you really emphasize to drive some efficiency there?
I think one of the biggest things is having, sometimes it's almost overwhelming in the beginning because you have access to so much data. So understanding what you're using it for. And again, you have a team of individuals and success managers that can help you go through that. But having the ability to see all claim status and regardless of denials or anything like that, the total paid versus the billed amount is a big thing. A lot of times in other systems, when you're looking at your open AR or you're looking at your expected pays, it all bases off of just the AR figure. So it allows you to see these different trends in time. You're able to look at your low pays a lot easier. Things that might not have open AR, but you just maybe weren't pretty much adjudicated or paid at the right value. You have a lot of insights to that. So you can see trends and payer mix behavior a little bit better. Your days till pay, your denial trends are super easy. There's that dynamic dashboard within the reporting suite, but then you also have the ability to break it down very granular and get a list of claim by claim, payer by payer. So again, just having that access to the big picture, I feel like a lot of other times you can get it hidden behind different things or filtered out in a certain way where you're not getting that full picture. So I find that to be a really beneficial tool to start making those decisions. Again, when you're doing payer contracting or you're just working your AR differently, having that is really nice to help drive that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. At Prompt, obviously, first and foremost, when teams transition, we want to make sure that everyone at their team is finding success and happy with the transition. But I think another group that sometimes we don't consider with the EMR transition is, does this actually lead to our patients being happier? And I'd be curious to hear from both Stevie and Josh on this one. Have you guys noticed any changes just in terms of patient satisfaction with being able to schedule online, or yeah, what have you guys heard from feedback?
Yeah, so I guess I can take it first and then I'll kick it over to
Yeah.
Stevie. Yes, so there has been a lot of uptick in patient satisfaction, not only for us, but just across the board with our clients as well that we're with. We hear it all the time. Things like scheduling, check-in is much easier to do. But then also the transparency around their billing, their statements, right? It's more accurate. It's far more accurate. They have less questions about why they're being billed for what, because the way the prompt billing module does things, it just creates more accuracy there and the ability to send out those statements regularly to patients so they don't get something that all of a sudden it's a $600 bill. No, they've been paying on it because they've been getting those regular statements, which is very easy to send out. And then also, we've gotten feedback across the board just saying that their clinicians are more present and not buried in their computers because the documentation is so efficient and effective. No one likes to take documentation home, right? And some of the other EMRs, they were buried in there trying to get it all done within the session. And now it's a lot easier, a lot quicker, a lot more efficient. They don't have to be doing that. And they still don't take documentation home. So we have gotten that feedback too, that patients feel like they're more present in their sessions with them.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said, Josh. We have noticed patients have said, we warned everybody right up front. We had signs, we had a marketing campaign. Hey, we're transitioning to a new EMR system, so work with us a little bit because things are going to change. But also, you're going to notice things coming from prompts directly. I think some of the things that we see, online scheduling and, like you said, statements and the pay portal are just so user friendly and so like transparent and easy to use that patients really do have a great experience with all of those features that are open to them. Even something as small and feels silly as to say that Prompt offers customized birthday emails, and it's an automatic thing from the system. And it's something that we wanted to do prior, and we were doing it at a manual level because we liked that idea. And when we noticed that Prompt offered it as an option to just automatically send to these patients, I thought it was huge. We have also had the same experience and patient response to our transition to Prompt.
Yeah, everybody loves their birthday, right? I
Mhm.
can't miss that. Yeah, and in one tool, I just wanted to make a quick mention of too. The POC compliance tool is, I think, in my opinion, one of our best, right? It's going to help you guys drive some additional visits onto your calendar by basically inviting patients who are underbooked for their plan of care to any openings that you have on the calendar. So from a revenue standpoint, it's massive, but also from like patient outcomes, right? Like with how many different patients get evaluated in referrals, it's really easy to lose track of patients and have them fall off the schedule. But that frequency and duration is basically like your clinician's prescription of how to get better, right? And if patients aren't hitting those metrics, they're going to struggle to get back to what they want to be doing. To me, that's always been one of my favorite tools, not only from the business side and getting more visits, but also getting patients in at the right dosage so that they can get better and get back to what they love doing. Doing okay in time here. Perfect. Looking back at both of your transitions, Stevie, from your end, what was your biggest fear going into it? And then I guess kind of part two would be, I guess if you guys could have done anything differently, what would you have adjusted during onboarding?
Change is hard. I come from a psychology background. My basic degree is in psychology, and change at a base level is just really hard. And getting that initial buy-in and everyone, the initial feedback was, oh, do we have to change EMRs? We're comfortable where we are. And if you're considering making a change to your EMR system, there's got to be a reason why. You're looking to leave a product that doesn't work for you and you're seeking out a product that does. Getting over that first hurdle of this is going to be hard. Yeah, change is hard. So you just have to put that away and move forward with it's going to be hard, but how is this going to improve our everything, our day-to-day operations? And now almost a year out, it truly has. So it really was the right decision for us. And looking back, if there was anything that we could do differently, I think Josh mentioned how great Prompt University is and what a great tool it was. And we really encouraged our people to complete the Prompt University, but there was almost no kind of requirement on it. Hey, you should really do this to help with the system. I think looking back on it, I would have done more in that way. I would have made it required because there was a very clear gap in those that completed all of the training and those that didn't in just their basic knowledge, the questions that were being asked.
Yeah.
So I think that making that piece a requirement and doing a little more pre-transition in that way probably would have set us up even better than we were.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a simple concept, but the people that do all the training are always going to be happier on the platform. That's true for every single team that I've ever worked with. And you brought up a good point there. I think the time when you're transitioning, yes, like your clinicians, your admins, your billings are they're all still working their normal job and having to do this on top of it. So it's always hard to ask for them to do a ton more there. But I also find that those couple of months, like those 6 to 8 weeks leading up to go live, you have the biggest opportunity to get people to buy into doing things a different way, right? As soon as you go live and people start doing it one way, it becomes harder and harder every month that goes by to get them to switch that. So I really think putting a ton of emphasis on, hey, I know everyone has a lot going on right now, but like those 6 to 8 weeks before go live are so critical because they're going to set you up for success for years to come if you get really good buy-in from that stuff. How about from your end, Josh?
Yeah, Stevie hit the nail on the head there with it's hard. With as robust as the onboarding is, there's still going to be some chaos. And I always like to tell our clients when we're meeting with them the week before go live is it may be 2 to 3 weeks of slight chaos to set yourself up for success for the lifespan of your practices. When you're looking at it that way, it's okay, we can do this. I think one of the biggest things is instead of focusing on the possible frustrations, focusing on what success looks like because you're leaving your old AR or you're considering leaving for a reason, right? Stevie said there's a reason there. So focus on what success looks like and then ask those tough questions if you want to the people at Prompt when you're switching over. Hey, this is what we want for success. Is this possible or how do we achieve that? I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give anybody in here is this, and I always relate it back to an ex, right? Like relationships. One of the biggest ways to fail in a new relationship is bringing everything you liked from the old one and being like, please still do this, just don't do all the stuff I didn't like. You need to start fresh. So don't, I understand you can be into some of your habits in the old system, and that's how it worked. And this was how we did the workaround, or I had this external report. I couldn't tell you how many clients I go, can just leave all your external reports, because guess what? They're right here and natively in prompt. And this is how you pull them and you have them here. So I think that would be one of the biggest tips is you're leaving that relationship, leave it all behind, right? And just start fresh with prompt and those new workflows. And the teams that have really truly flourished in the prompt system have done that. And so that's what I would probably leave it with there.
Yeah, no, that was wonderful. And I think you hit it spot on, right? If you're switching to prompt, you got to come in open-minded to changing some things. Because if you're not, to me, there's not a point in switching, right? If you're trying to do the same things in prompt, then you might be better off just staying where you currently are. So again, it's not that you have to reinvent the wheel in every capacity, but like the way that we've always thought about the product is how do we solve for things that teams are running into, right? So there might be a way that you're managing authorizations in your current system that when you go to prompt and try to do it that way, it might not work, but that's because we've come up with a solution that you don't have to do that. So I think being open-minded and realizing that you have, again, a really good clinical backing from myself and my team, and then a really good billing background, that we've done this a lot of times. Really putting trust in us to help you get the most out of it is a huge piece. And sorry, you both make great points there. Going back to something that Stevie said, your staff is always going to follow your lead, right? And the teams that have always had the most success when transitioning have always brought a lot of positivity and a lot of energy around the transition and how much easier it's going to make everyone's life, and how, again, just better things are going to be when you're on the other side of it. For any team in here who's thinking about switching over, I think doing your due diligence and really making sure that prompt is the best product for you is worth your while, because when you make the switch, you got to bring the right energy to it. Because if you guys are dragging your feet or feeling, oh, are we sure we want to do this? The rest of your team is going to feel that energy, and it's going to be tough to get buy-in from them to do all the training, which, like Stevie and Josh said, is a cornerstone to having success there. Stevie, how about from your end, any like words of wisdom or advice that you'd give someone thinking about a switch?
Yeah, I have to give a big shout out to Prompt and the support team, and just the ability that we have to connect with people at Prompt when we need something. Support tickets to support at promptemr.com are sometimes answered like immediately. I'm not sure how your people are answering me immediately, but in our previous EMR system, we had a ticket system that you would go back and check on, and this one was submitted 3 days ago and there's been no response. But Prompt is just responsive, and our ongoing relationship with Nolan being part of really our team in functioning well in Prompt has just been huge. I think if you're thinking about leaving your EMR, there's a reason, and Prompt really, everything that we've said today, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. Changing your whole system certainly is not an easy process, but Prompt has just been so worth it for us. Even things that we've had to change, or that one thing that you wanted to bring with you, like Josh said, like it doesn't make sense to bring things with you that don't work when the system does so much stuff for you. I think having a team of experts on your team, like Nolan mentioned, the teams that really buy into it. We joked with Nolan about, we want Prompt t-shirts. Like, how do we get Prompt t-shirts so that we can give one to everyone in our offices? Everyone's real stoked about this, because at a higher level, our core people really were excited about this transition and trying to pass along that positivity. But it's because we did the work on the front end to do all of the trainings. We created some of our own training materials based on what Prompt already offered, and that buy-in from our leadership and those people at the top, myself included, I think really made all the difference.
Yeah, no, 100%. Justin, anything that you think is really worthwhile to mention, just because I feel like on the billing side, I think there tends to be just a very different look of how the system functions and how things work. What would be your biggest piece of advice, especially to like the billing departments of teams looking to switch over, and how they get up and running and seeing efficiency quickly and prompt?
Absolutely. I think that's a good point. So it is set up differently. And so sometimes that's like a shock factor. I also think when people are switching EMRs, a lot of times the onus is on the clinicians and a lot of times even the front end. And sometimes the back end gets a little forgotten. So the teams that I see are most successful have a little bit of buy-in from their back end users as well to be able to start making those decisions and start having the conversation of, hey, like we're going to address this differently, or we're going to start this new workflow. RCM is kind of an old school thing. There's a million ways to get the same result. Everyone does it a little differently depending on your system. It's very system driven. So having that open conversation in the beginning of, hey, these are what our current workflows are. How can we change those into prompt workflows? And that's a huge part of having your success manager is we're here, we see teams of all sizes do it a little differently. A lot of successful teams do it very similarly. We're not here to tell you what to do, but we can tell you definitely best practices and we can tell you what we've seen success in and what we haven't. And the teams that ask those questions and have those conversations definitely, one, get the buy-in a little bit quicker, and two, have a plan on the day one when they're not playing catch up. And we all know in billing and RCM, the worst is playing catch up. So just having that plan in the beginning is really important and just using those resources. And once teams lean into that, it's actually exciting. Instead of comparing it apples to apples, you go in with this refreshed, how often do you get a new system with new data and new everything? Like it's a clean, fresh start. And people that treat it that way usually are very successful.
Yeah. And yeah, you mentioned something there too. I think at Prompt, the access that you have to your client success manager and your billing success manager is really second to none. I think it's well worth your while to take advantage of that. Ask questions, ask why we do it this way, ask why we might have not created it to do it a different way, and really let them guide you because we are the experts, right? Like we're in Prompt a whole lot day to day, and we have a really good idea of what's worked for teams and what hasn't. So yeah, that would maybe be my piece of advice is, as Stevie mentioned, like I still feel like an honorary PTSMC member from all the time that we spent together during onboarding. So I think really, really getting close with your team members at Prompt is going to give you the best ability to have the most information and make decisions that work for you. And again, I know we're talking a lot about onboarding today, but the post-go live stuff is just as important, if not more important, right? Once you actually get on, we want to make sure that you're actually taking advantage of everything. And I'm sure you guys might have noticed that Prompt comes out with new updates all the time, right? As you guys are still running your own businesses, it's sometimes tough to keep up with, hey, should I be using this, that, or the other? It's another great time to really connect with your CSM or billing success manager and learn about, hey, what's new? Is this something that's going to work for our team that we should be switching over to? So I know we're coming up on time here. Stevie or Josh, any kind of parting words or anything else that you guys think is worth mentioning today?
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so honestly, I think we've said quite a bit, but what I would say is if you're on the fence, I think one of the biggest things is the cost of, and I said it a little bit before, the cost of what it's going to take to do it versus what revenue leakages you have, efficiency leakages you have right now in your current EMR. Your ROI is going to be exponential once you move over, and you're going to be wondering why you didn't do it sooner. I hear that. I couldn't even tell you how many times I hear that from clients as, God, I wish we did this earlier. We would be set up so much better now than we even are currently. So those would probably be my parting words for anybody listening today. And just definitely don't sugarcoat it. It's going to be a little bit of chaos. It's going to be a little difficult. I don't think there's any switch in the world that wouldn't be, but with everything that's set up through Prompt, their success managers and how they do things, I think this would be the least chaotic. And it was for us, honestly, and every client we talked to. So if all of them are, this would be the least, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I love the phrase embrace the chaos because you're certainly undertaking an amount of chaos for a good reason. Like you said, the ROI on this transition has been way past what we, I think, anticipated. And we knew Prompt was a great system from all of our meetings with other EMRs, and Prompt was always the leader in our conversations, and just all of the support that we've had. We just met with Nolan recently about, hey, here's how you guys are using the products and here's what you could do better. So the continued connection that we have with our Prompt people, I think, is a huge reason why Prompt is the way to go. So if you're thinking about it, definitely talk to your people, ask all of the questions. There's almost no question I don't think Nolan has been able to answer for us, and I'm sure your Prompt connection has that same abilities. Everyone I've met at Prompt is just so knowledgeable about just about everything. I think definitely ask all the questions, present your workflows, and make that decision if you're thinking about it.
Yeah, no, thank you both. And one parting thing from my end that I always find just funny is that I always feel like teams are most nervous about that go live week, right? And there certainly is some data entry and it is a little bit busier, but it's all about the weeks leading up to it, right? Like if you've already taken the time to build those workflows, do the prep work, get everyone up to speed. I always tend to find that people are almost like, oh, this is actually going pretty well. It's all in how you spend the time in those 6 to 8 weeks, or even a little bit more for larger teams leading up to it. And I think you can actually have a pretty clean transition as long as you've done the work for it. So Josh and Stevie, thanks so much for being here. I think we're going to open it up to another poll question, Cecilia, and then some QA as well.
Yeah, just a quick poll on how you're feeling about transitioning EMRs now that we've had this conversation. So appreciate it. All right. I think Nolan, actually, I think we're at time. So probably we've pretty much covered all the questions actually that were asked in just organically. So I think we're in good shape right now because there was one that came in about that. What happens if they're trying to get buy-in from people who are hesitating and dragging their feet? And they're like, we've had this pain point for years, but they keep kicking that can down the road. So that was a crucial one that you answered.
Awesome. Well, yeah, first off, Stevie, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you cutting out some time. Josh, thank you so much for joining us as well. I think it's really helpful to get the perspective from your guys' side versus the prom side. So we really appreciate the time you guys spent with us today. And then for everybody who joined the call, again, appreciate all of you guys for joining, and hopefully we'll hear from you guys soon and get this process started for you. Justin, thanks for being here as well to add some billing commentary. But yeah, have a great rest of your week, and hopefully we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks,
Thanks
all.
for having me.
Thanks
Yeah.
for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye.